to World War II, New to Me 2022. Now, if you're trying to figure out what I'm doing here with Kilroy's Key 3, I'll put a link to the introduction to this series down below. But basically, I'm going to be looking at, the top 3 games in my collection that I think are worthy of my point of view. And my point of view is evaluating the games for presentation, operation, and value. And I kind of explained that in that introductory video. This one is further limited to New to Me in 2022. So that's something that I've either acquired and played or just played for the first time in 2022. Another limitation that I'm doing for this video, this is World War II, but I'm excluding small unit tactical games, which I've already covered in another piece. So I won't be covering that here. These are World War II, New to Me, 2022. So I got my chest of keys ready to start doling some of these out. But which ones are we going to be talking about today? Well, if you can tell by the map that's on the board, one of them is going to be Salerno 43 from GMT Games, a Mark Simonich design. Another one, if you can tell a little bit by the underlay that's right underneath the Salerno map, is Donnerschlag, Escape from Stalingrad. This is Patrick Gebhardt and game and produced by VUCA Simulations. And the third game, which you probably can't tell because it's very hidden under all this, is Fire in the Sky. Tetsuya Nakamura, Fire in the Sky, The Great Pacific War, 1941 and 1945. I do need to say about Donnerschlag and Fire in the Sky that these were provided to me. Donnerschlag came directly from Patrick Gebhardt, and Fire in the Sky was, I won a contest with the Discriminating Gamer. So, and I'll put links to my unboxings or overviews of these games in the description below. So, why do these games rise to the list of World War II games that were new to me and that I played in 2022? Well, they're very different designs. Salerno is probably the most traditional hex encounter of the lot. It's part of the Zachbahn series, which I've got a playlist on that. Though this is a series created by Mark Simonich, that it's really not as much of a series or a system as it is a group of games that share some of this very similar mechanisms. The Zachbahn is a similar mechanism. And it has some other rules that are very similar. However, each of the games in this series, kind of have some unique aspects. This is a landing game. Deals with landing on the beaches of Italy. Normandy 44 has some similar aspects to that, but Ardennes 44 has even different kind of feel and rules to it. Each one of them, I guess, brings something different to the table, but yet there's a certain similarity and there's certain familiarity with the rules as you play them. This one, in my opinion, might be one of the better introductory games to this system because it's a smaller map and counter density, but really kind of lets you get into the rules. Donnerschlag is a hex encounter as well, but it's yet even more different than some of the other war games I've played. It's got a card activation system that's kind of different. And the way that the scenario plays out is trying to simulate the German relief effort in Stalingrad, and so the rules are very unique to that situation. Fire in the Sky is more of an operational the entire Pacific theater from 41 to 45, as it says on the box. And it is yet a different way or different approach to the operations in the Pacific, especially with, Pacific War and that came out this year, or the reprint of that, and then of course Empire of the Sun. Mark Herman's one of my favorite Pacific War games or Pacific theater games of World War II. This is a different approach from that. This is a very unique way of the way it does logistics and the Japanese need for oil and how that manages operations, and does it in somewhat of an abstract way, but yet a very playable way and very interesting way. So let's get to the point of view, which is presentation, operation, and value. Presentation wise, well, I think I got to look at the maps here for a little bit before we get into the, to really understand some of the presentation. Presentation includes, maps, the cover of the box itself, the counters, and the like. Salerno 43. Now, this is the mounted map that came out later this year. The mounted map version. The original comes with a paper map, which is very typical of GMT games, but this one allowed for a mounted map, and it's a nice map. It's very serviceable, very functional. I generally like the Mark Simonich 4X or Zachbon series of maps, the way they present things. They have turn tracks and the like. But this one is probably not as good as, the one for Donnerschlag, which is, this one right here, very nicely done. I mean, it has your card rows, because again, this is an activation game, so you have your card rows on the side here. You have some other turn tracks here. You have the Donnerschlag advance, which is, basically the Germans are starting down on this side and moving towards the relief effort. And Germans have to pick one of these different zones, A, B, or C, that they're going to attack, or, that's where they're going to focus their attack for the relief effort. And the Russians, defenders, or that have encircled, this area, they don't know which one they're going to go for. And so that's kind of the cat and mouse aspect. And one of the reasons why this game really doesn't solo well, I mean, each of these games are more of are basically competitive or opposed games, but a lot of times you can play two-handed and kind of play both one side to the best of its ability, then switch over. This one's a little bit harder because you do have these hidden areas or objectives for the Germans. But a very interesting game and some interesting mechanics. And this board, I like it. It's somewhat muted, but it kind of fits. It kind of fits with the Eastern Front, and I just kind of like it. But the board that I kind of like even a little bit better out of these boards is probably Fire in the Sky, because of again, this is even more muted than the original. The original had a lot of clouds, blue skies and clouds on the board, which is kind of different. But this one is muted but very functional. I mean, as you can see here, the different, like the circles are for armies and how many they can hold, and the squares are for fleets, and the hexagons are for air power. And those are followed along into the counters themselves. So like, here's a fleet. This is the, representing the Yamamoto. A weird thing here is that some of these counters have a weird, they're kind of off line, and some of them had a little bit of a foot or a jag there. But like, so here, here's the Lexington. Of course, my uncle James served on the USS Lexington. Here's an Army Corps. Of course, I've done some stuff about my uncle Theo. He was in the Army in the Pacific, and I had a uncle that was in the Marines in the Pacific. And this is an Air Corps, as you see the hex counter. So the counters and the board match up very nicely in this game. And so, it's for presentation wise, the maps are, very different, and is what you're looking for. Are you looking for functionality, or are you looking for, the overall presentation. I will say one thing about VUCA simulations, though. The player aids, which I think also goes into the presentation, are just top notch. I mean, you have these very thick player aids. That here's the extended sequence of play. Here's your combat results table, and these are just very thick. I mean, they're as thick as some boards of some games. And here's your setup display, for each of the sides. And again, very thick, mounted almost type of player aids and charts in that regard. So very interesting. And the cards are fine. The cards aren't the thickest quality, but they're very serviceable. I mean, these are your activations, and there's like an early, and late type for activations, and it tells you how you can activate, and there's a whole sequence of how you use these to activate, and both sides have these sets of cards, and that kind of drives the game in Donnerslag. So when it comes to overall presentation for each of these games, I would probably give the one key. Although it's still, I really like the series, but I probably give the one key to Salerno when it comes to giving out the two key this is really tough. I mean, it's very close, but I'd probably give the 2 to Fire in the Sky, and I'd probably give the 3 keys to Donnerslag for presentation. As for the rules, though, to me, clearly the 3 keys go to Salerno. This system is, I like this system. It's not the easiest system in the world, but once you've played a few games in this system, the Zachbahn or 4X system is relatively intuitive, and I like how it can be taken to different types of conflicts or different battles or operations during World War II. And adding a little, without having to add a whole lot to it, you still have the basic kind of the same core rule set, but yet get a different feel based on that different theater or that different conflict or that different operation. Next up is kind of tough because you've got Fire in the Sky and Donnerslag. But Donnerslag is relatively streamlined in the rules, but there was I found some ambiguities that I kind of had to work through on it. Fire in the Sky is a little bit more involved of a game because you're dealing with the entire Pacific War and the entire theater, so it's a little bit more involved. But I found the rules relatively understandable and easy to get to. So, in that regard, I probably give the 2 keys to Fire in the Sky, and I'll give 1 key to Donnerslag. But it's pretty close there on both of those. Now for value, and value can be whether you're going to evaluate the simulation value of these games, or the overall playability of these games, or and I do this mostly with non-war games, but is it fun? Is it enjoyable to play these? I would say for playability or replayability, the interesting thing here is Donnerslag is dealing with a very specific the relief effort. And it is replayable because, each time you might be going for one of those different objectives and the way the activation cards come up. So it's each experience is very different, but it is limited to that one specific circumstance. Salerno is somewhat of the same way. It's dealing with the landings in 1943, the Allies' invasion of Italy. But there is a certain replayability to it as well. The one that I think that has the most probably replayability, though, is probably Fire in the Sky. As far as simulation value, I think Salerno probably does the best job of simulation. So it's kind of 6 of one and half dozen of another. Donnerslag does a good job, but it is a little bit more abstracted, and there's a little bit more gameplay. And that's one of the things they do say in the rules, is that they were focused on making a game of this relief effort as opposed to just a pure simulation. So I'm going to go with the one key for Donnerslag. So now the question becomes, between Fire in the Sky and Salerno, what do I think about simulation versus replayability? And I'm probably going to go with, as far as simulation value, just the level of detail, I'm probably going to go with Salerno and give that the 3 keys, and which will leave Fire in the Sky with 2 keys. So where does that leave us for the total? So Fire in the Sky gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keys. Donnerslag gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keys. And Salerno gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keys. So that is going to get the tip to scale in favor of Salerno for Kilroy's Key 3 World War II New2Me 2022. So there you have it. I know your experience might differ. These might not be new games to you. I mean, these two definitely were new this year. This one is an older game, but I got a copy from the Discriminating Gamer, and it was new to me in that regard. But your experience on these 3 games might differ as well. So love to know your thoughts on it. Love to know what you think. How wrong am I, or what you might agree with. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. I enjoyed kind of thinking about these in this perspective, in my point of view. But I'd love to know your point of view. What do you think about these games, or what are the ones that I'm missing, or I should have put here instead, based on your position or your point of view. However, again, this was limited to my collection. Your collection and your mileage may vary. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Thanks for stopping by. Love to hear from you, and have a good one. Thanks for watching.